had the idea for the game I'm making now when I was 13 years old. I was playing a lot of this game, Cookie Clicker, a simple game where you click a cookie, get a cookie, and you can use that cookie to buy things that generate more cookies. At the time, my friend was really into nature and mushrooms, and as 13-year-olds do, I came up with an idea based on a mix of the two, and it took me about 13 years to make it. I'm 26 now, and this is Mushies. Mushies is an incremental mushroom clicker with a fun story and a cozy vibe. The type of game that seemed perfect for my skill level at the time of its conception. And it was simple enough and straightforward in the beginning, but since then I've built out lots of complex and intertwined systems for the game. I put a lot of time into new mechanics and events, and coming out of 5 years of software development and a decade of FPS, the last thing I wanted to make was something that demanded anything from anyone. I wasn't interested in the level of intensity in the games I used to play, and I was tired of most AAA games. I didn't want to build a game that punished the player for making a small mistake or forced the player to restart upon failure. So Mushies is pretty deliberately the opposite of all that. It's a quirky, fun incremental where you build out a bustling village and help your mushrooms thrive. You hire workers, watch the numbers climb faster and faster, and the gameplay gets more complex as you watch your kingdom grow, which all of that is what I think makes incremental games appealing to me. I love titles like Tower Wizard, Norp Apolog, and Node Buster, which you'll probably see influence from those games in the final product of Mushies. This is the first worker you hire. He's a shaker shroom. His job is to shake the main mushroom so more spores fall out. Past him, you'll unlock builders, gardeners, scientists, mushrooms with jetpacks, and many more. Each one opens up access to new buildings, mechanics, and upgrades. I've spent the last year building all this out, and I can finally say just now that I'm proud of the game that Mushies has become. About 3 months ago, I started handing early versions to my family and friends to play, and that turned out to be one of the most useful and confusing events during Mushies development. Players do things you never would have predicted when developing your game. They will ignore features you thought were the centerpiece of an event. They will get obsessed over things that you thought were filler or small, things that you didn't think much of when you were making them. They find bugs that you couldn't have produced on purpose if you tried, which is extremely helpful. And every single one of them has feedback, and the feedback often contradicts itself person to person. The thing I had to learn fairly quickly is that you cannot chase all of the feedback. If 4 people out of 5 tell you the same thing is broken, that's real and you need to fix that bug, but there will be offhand comments like, what if it also did this, or I'd personally prefer if it worked this way, or was faster, or was slower. Most of those get shelved, in my opinion. Not because they're necessarily wrong, but because if you try to implement each individual person's taste, you end up with a game that doesn't really have the original shape it had, and it's not really yours anymore. So you look for the commonalities or ideas that sound like a perfect fit for your game. You listen to those, and you have to let the rest go. One thing I wasn't expecting is that people also may be slightly upset when playing updated versions and seeing you didn't take all their feedback into account. That was really surprising to me. I'm really excited about Mushies. I've loved video games for as long as I can remember. My dad sat me in front of MAME before I could even read. MAME's an arcade emulator, and he'd point me at his catalog of everything he had grown up on. So the first games I played were from the 80s and 90s, and that turned out to be the best possible gateways into the hobby for a kid like me. After following my dad's footsteps, I started to explore emulation of early consoles and eventually started to develop my own taste. Guitar Hero, Ratchet and Clank, Spyro, and then PC, getting into Counter-Strike, Team Fortress 2, and then just a plethora of first-person shooters that ate up thousands of hours of my life in my late teens. Somewhere in there, around the age of 8 or 9, I had started telling my dad I wanted him to make one for me. I didn't understand at the time that a video game isn't exactly an easy ask. Music, art, animation, and code all fuse together into a single thing that also has to be fun and constantly engaging is 6 jobs pretending to be one, and not exactly an easy ask of my father, who had a full-time job. So with no other choice, I shelved the ideas and creative itch to the back of my brain and just kept living. This whole time I was growing up in Eugene, Oregon, and that's a big reason why the game is centered around mushrooms and not anything else. Eugene sits in the Willamette Valley, surrounded on every side by old-growth forest. The parks inside the city are full of the same enormous firs and cedars. It rains most of the year, everything stays really green, and the forest floor is thick with moss and ferns, and of course, if you know where to look, lots of different mushrooms. I ended up at a local nature camp with my friend, the kind of place where you spend a full day out with a guide who's been doing it for like 30 years describing names of plants and what's edible, what's dangerous. I remember an older gentleman named Bill who always wore a fishing vest. Those guides, they used to talk about mycelium, and what you see above the ground when you see a mushroom is one fruiting body of an organism that extends underground for possibly miles and miles. And my childhood friend Liam was obsessed with the idea, and as a result we would often draw mushroom characters in our free time. This eventually led me to believe I should make the mushroom version of Cookie Clicker. And even though that's not really what Mushies turned out to be, I'm happy I finally executed on little me's dream. If you've been carrying a game idea around with you for 10 years or longer like I was, the gap between you and a started project is probably smaller than it feels from the inside. I know it was for me. The tools have never been more available. There are more tutorials than ever, and there are better tutorials than there used to be. I use Godot. It's an amazing engine, and there's never been more information on how to develop and ship a game. I do say all this even though I've never pressed release on a game before. I've never released a game. We're planning to release Mushies this coming fall, and releasing a game is a nerve-wracking thing, so I don't blame you if you haven't started yet, but give it a shot. And if you want to follow along with Mushies as it comes together, there's a Steam page link below, and of course I would love if you wishlisted the game, and of course you can subscribe to this channel where I will be dropping game dev vlogs and more videos like this one.